So Shawn, tell us how the season finale is wrapped up. Just tell us right now how everything comes to an end.
In season 2?
Yeah, just tell us how the
we're
finale
only in episode 6, so that would be difficult
just
for me to know.
Just tell us everything.
Yeah, I wish I could. I will say that, and I don't know how much you guys have heard, but season 2 does pick up about a year after the events of the last season. So it's kind of nice. It gives the characters somewhere to grow. It's not the immediacy of the first season where like an episode ended and 2 seconds later you would pick up. It gives these characters a little room to breathe, and we actually find out what happens after the consequences of this season, including for Mike. Ryan and him, murdered and tortured a detainee, basically. So that certainly doesn't go without its consequences. So we sort of find Mike in a place of flux and certainly spiraling downward a little bit. And it's kind of interesting to explore that. And that's what we've done so far in season 2.
You had an intense fight last season. Do you ever have any mishaps or?
Well, there's always a few little mishaps here and there. We're actually, the fight stuff we do choreograph pretty quickly, but it's every once in a while you get knocked, or the stunt knife that you're supposed to be using doesn't quite retract, or whatever. There's things like that. So every action scene I've shot on this show, you walk away with a few bumps and bruises, but nothing serious.
What Mike went through last year when he was tortured, that was intense, and then trying to come back. What was that like? I don't think you've ever done anything that intense before.
No, that was to me, when I always liked Weston, I loved that character from the beginning. I loved the sort of levity that he brought at the beginning of the season, and I loved the chemistry between Ryan Hardy and Mike from the beginning. But when I really got excited about digging into Mike, the sort of juicy stuff, was that episode I called the Fight Club episode, where I got tortured and kidnapped. And the reason that I think that was a big turn is because I think that's the first time that Ryan actually saw under the surface of Mike, not just this eager guy, but there was more to it. I think the audience was surprised by how tough he was. I think they were surprised by the depth that he had, and the connection that they made because of the sacrifice that Mike made for Ryan's love, Claire. It was an intense season, and it was nice to sort of ramp up and sort of have that levity with Mike. So then when that turn happened, I think the audience really felt it, and I only know that because people have really come up and said how affected they were by that episode, and sort of shocked and scared that Mike was going to be killed off. And it's nice when people care about your character. So
do you know for the season where you're at, or is every script you have to read it and see if you're still in the show at the end of it?
We do get if we're going to die off, we do get the warning. But Kevin and Marcos really play their cards pretty close to the chest, which I enjoy. So when we get the scripts, we're discovering it for the first time. And if there's something very specific that's happening, or training that needs to be done, or something like that, we will get a heads up. But and we have broad strokes of where the season's going, but the little twists and turns and surprises the audience gets, like, wow, I didn't see that coming. Most of the time, that's how I feel when I'm reading scripts. And, for me, that's a good sign. That means that I'm engaged and I'm still surprised. So if I'm still surprised and I'm a part of it and I'm thinking about it daily, I think it's a good sign for what the audience is about to experience.
Cool. I was on the panel and you were saying that every time you're reading the script, you are surprised and astonished with the things that are going on. I want to know, how important is this for the actor to get as surprised as the audience when we watch it?
I think it keeps us as actors and performers engaged in the story. If it's something that surprises us, then it's going to be fun for us to play. Like, I get excited when I read a kill or a moment that surprises me, because I know what that will do when the show airs. So to me, it's important because it keeps us engaged and excited about the characters, the projects, or the scene, the storyline, whatever it is. The other thing I think is cool is that, in a lot of traditional network shows, the core cast is always safe. So when, on episode 85, when the character's walking down a dark hallway with a gun and he's acting scared, the audience sort of understands that they're not going to die. Whereas in the following, it's easier for me to suspend my disbelief walking down a dark hallway for the 15th time, acting afraid, because the audience is with you. They understand that this might be the last scene that we see Mike. This might be the last scene that we see Parker, or what have you. So I think that that's kind of an interesting thing with the show, and I think that's what a lot of shows are doing now, more cable related. But they kill off the main characters. They keep the stakes high, and so the stakes are high for us as actors, which in turn keeps the stakes high for the audience.
Can you talk a little bit more about the relationship between Mike and
because in some ways seems to be becoming a mentor, but in some ways Mike is also like a younger version of Ryan. I mean, they're going through similar kind of things.
Yeah, I started to realize that at the end of last season that Mike is a mirror to Ryan. They're going through the similar experience and having the same outcome. So to me, what's going to be interesting is do they become the same person? Do they go through the same journey? Does Mike pull out of it? Does Ryan help Mike from that downward spiral? And I can't say that it is dark for Mike in the second season. It doesn't get any easier. You know, the repercussions of losing 2 partners, of having to kill several people, of him almost being killed several times, that weighs very heavy on him. And yeah, there's a mirror there, and I think that Mike is reaching out to Ryan. And these aren't the kind of guys that'll go for a beer and hang out. I don't think they're ever going to be that kind of friend, but there is a friendship and a bond between them, and I think it's really interesting, and I think that that's one of the great things about this season is to sort of start discovering that bond and see how it plays out for these guys, because it's not as easy as just like, hey man, I need some help, let's talk about it. You know, it's not that easy between these 2 guys. So
I think pulling, yeah. I think she's pulling you.
Oh, that's
one
it?
more, or that was the last?
One more.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This was interesting during that Fight Club scene. There was also a chance for Mike to actually inject some levity into that.
Yeah.
He had some of those lines. What was it like to kind of mix the situation where you have some levity lines and you're going through something intense?
You know, I didn't think about it as levity. In my head, I was like, Mike thinks he's going to die, and he's going to say "fuck you" to Roderick on the way out. You know, and so that lens, because I think he stood up for himself.
Yeah.
And I think that it was a big fu basically. And that's how I'd want to go out. I'm not sure that I would have the bravery or the courage to do that. Who knows? But as an actor, it's fun to think that you might be able to do that. But that was great. I mean, and that's what gave this scene some made it dynamic, and also made Mike come out courageous and heroic at the end. Is that he didn't fold, that he didn't break down. He stood up for himself and fought till the death almost.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Shawn.
Good to see you guys.